So we're going to be hiding the horizontal channel and making visible again the vertical channel. So just as a reminder, that slash through the 41 means that that channel 41, the vertical channel, happens to be hidden right now, so that was working for us when we were doing other things. So I'll be hitting the Alt key, and I'm going to try to do this all at once, but I don't know if I can do it. And I'm hiding the horizontal channel and then making visible the vertical channel, and now we can see much better what's happening. So now, going back to our lab manual, or our PDF file, we need to kind of measure the same exact thing for the vertical cycles. So I like to find something that looks something like a peak and measure from one to the next. So this is tricky because everything wasn't so clean or clear, but we're going to call that a cycle. And now we're doing the delta T for this selected channel, and ideally we'd like to do 41p to p, but to make life a little easier, we're going to actually choose our channel 41 for here, and that's going to be our 41 delta T, and we're going to go here and do the same, channel 41 p to p. That way we can in one view see both our values. So that's the first cycle for the vertical tracking. We're going to call that another cycle, and there's our values for that. That looks like a cycle, so check those values. Try to get this as close as I can to accurate. There's our next cycle, and there's the values. And it's hard to be precise when you have a tiny screen. There's our next cycle and the values. It looks like we have maybe one or two more possible cycles that we'll go through. There's one. And I think we could squeeze one more out of this, but it's starting to get a little bit vague what we're seeing. We'll call that our last for that one. So that should have filled in the values for the real object, those two columns, and now we're going to work on our simulated vertical tracking. So again, I find it easier to simply scroll to the right, and this should be our next epoch of interest. Just to confirm, I'm going to click here, and it does say simulate vertical tracking. So this is even more of a mess because he was imagining himself doing something. So again, we'd have to just do our best in terms of what a cycle is, where one starts and the other ends. So we're going to call that our first cycle. And there's the values. And this gets trickier as we go. I'm going to call that a cycle. Cycle. Actually, we're going to try again. There's as good as we can get. We'll call that one a cycle as best as we can imagine it to be. This is getting pretty iffy on where a cycle is, but we'll call that one. And that's about as far as we can go. There's our last cycle for the simulated vertical tracking. Now our next challenge is to track the saccades in the reading passages. So once again, I'm going to simply scroll to the right. Now, the saccades are best measured if you read carefully in your procedure, analysis procedure document. They're best tracked again in the horizontal channel, and now we're in vertical. So once again, I'm going to have to scroll. I'm going to hit the Alt key, and I'm sorry for this hard to see situation, but I went ahead and hit the Alt key and hid again the vertical channel and went back to the horizontal channel. And we still have highlighted the little swatch of time period for the last vertical tracking segment. And now we're going to go into our saccades. These are the eye movements that he made as he was reading passages. Now, as you can see from this data, over here looks like a mess. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe we were still recording and he was done reading. But we're, again, the name of the game in nearly any lab or any physiological data that you're looking for some pattern. Your eye is looking for a pattern that appears to repeat itself. And the patterns are different, and they look different for various things like ECG, EDA, respiration. They all have different looks to their waveforms, but after a while your eye gets practiced at seeing what the pattern should look like. And I can see here those three peaks are representing the tail end of some sort of pattern. So I zoomed in on those so I can look more carefully. And now you have to flip back and forth quite a bit to your lab manual where it's going to be telling you what to highlight. Now, up to now I was kind of telling you. This is of particular importance. This is his first passage that he was reading silently to himself. It was an easy reading passage. Now this is just the example data, but it's going to show you two really important things here. First of all, it shows you where the saccades are in this one line of text that the example person was reading, whoever that was. And you see the saccades, they've kind of highlighted them here. They are where the data takes an upswing. And so the easiest one to look at is like channel 6 there, or the 6th saccade. They've highlighted the up part. So that's where the eye is moving from word to word. And so that's useful to know. And of course that pink swatch at the end is where he quickly moved his eyes back to the next line of text. So this is representing him reading one line of text. And then if you scrolled further down, they're giving you a similar but different example, which is in that same line of text. Now, instead of highlighting the saccade itself, the instructions are actually to highlight between saccades. So that's ostensibly the amount of time he's spending looking at a word. Now, sometimes a person who's reading and resting their eyes in one part of the page is not just taking in one word, but they might take in 2 or 3 words. This can be especially the case when you're reading a prepositional phrase like on the water. I'm giving an example. You might be taking all of those words in with one stop of your eye. But anyway, that's the interval between the saccades, and that's what we have to do on this data now. We have to find, first of all, we're going to find 2 lines of text that he's reading. And I'm going to kind of lay it out. You don't want to start here because that looks very hard to figure out what's going on, and it doesn't really follow our rule of thumb, which is to find something that has a repeating appearing pattern. These next two look as good as we can get in that realm. So we're going to start, I'm going to grab my I-beam cursor, and we're going to start again. I'm highlighting between saccades. So the upticks are the saccades. So the space between them are where he's resting his eyes on a word or set of words. And now we are trying to look at, now I need to adjust this back. This needs to be the time interval between saccades, but I had this left off from the horizontal channel, or from the vertical. I need to switch it back. Now we're looking at the change in time for that channel 40. So there's the first data point for table 10.3. Not the number of words, not the number of saccades. You're going to have to figure that out, and you'll be able to figure out the number of words is coming from this data passage, which is in the PDF file that you'll find. It's the last page of the analysis procedure, and it's in there. But we're going to start filling in the data points. So we're starting with number 1 here, and this is the time interval between saccades. And there's that first time interval. And now I'm going to go try to find the second interval.